UPenn wants social entrepreneurs. Princeton wants academic intellectuals. But what does Dartmouth want? Authenticity, autonomy, and adventure. These are the three key traits that Dartmouth looks for in their applicants. How do I know? Well, because Dartmouth mentions it right in their admissions website, specifically when referencing their famous D-plan. In short, the term D-plan refers to the flexibility Dartmouth gives its students in choosing when they take classes and when they're on break. But the plan isn't about Dartmouth, it's about each individual student. Within a few guidelines, students have the autonomy to schedule their classes and breaks around their academic, research, and professional interests. In the D-plan, there are both residence terms and leave terms. Now, residence terms are where students, reside on campus and stay in Hanover, while leave terms are terms where students go off campus to conduct research, do an internship, or study abroad. Given just how much Dartmouth emphasizes their D-plan, it's absolutely necessary to talk about it, or at the very least mention it somewhere in your Dartmouth application. But how exactly should we go about this? I mean, after all, we don't want to sound cliche or trite, right? Well, let me show you, using an imaginary student, Drew. Drew is a high schooler from the South who is intensely passionate about anthropology and the environment. In his free time, he explores trails and even researches the history of how they were made. He's also conducted some humanities research at his local state university, and he's published a few papers about the intersection of Native American agricultural techniques and the sociology of farming. So, in that 100-word Dartmouth short response question, Drew would do well to mention how he plans to leverage this D-plan to not just continue what he's doing, but really take his passion and interest for anthropology and ecology to the next level. He shouldn't just say where he wants to study abroad or what classes he wants to take. No, instead, Drew should precisely articulate what ambitious adventures he aims to partake in. For instance, Drew might talk about how he's absolutely thrilled or pumped at the prospect of exploring Istanbul and studying how mass migration in the early 2000s affected the city, as well as the fertility of the nearby land. And then after that, he should end by clearly explaining what his short-term goals are and who he wants to help and uplift. You know, maybe Drew wants to go to grad school, become a professor, and then continue researching this topic in the South, where folks aren't as aware of these sorts of eco-anthropological issues. Moving on to part number 2, what do Dartmouth students, aka Big Greens, have to say? Throughout all those cold and snowy nights up in Hanover, community is what keeps Dartmouth students warm. Dartmouth's pride in its tight-knit student body is evident in just the sheer number of campus-wide events they have, and their tiny undergrad population. I mean, did you know that there's less than 4,500 undergrads in all of Dartmouth? That's like smaller than some public high schools. Back to the events though. One of the biggest annual events is the Winter Carnival. There, Big Greens celebrate the winter through outdoor events like recreational skiing competitions and a polar bear plunge. Ever been to a high school pep rally? Well, imagine that and multiply it by 5 and you'll get a decent picture of what homecoming bonfire looks like. The event is celebrated on Dartmouth's central quad and serves as a symbol of, you guessed it, campus unity. Here's a fun fact. At a lot of these events, alumni return to Dartmouth to celebrate with undergrads. Great networking opportunity. Indeed, Dartmouth's alumni network is one of its greatest strengths. And again, this is largely due to the school's very, very tight-knit student body. It is, after all, the smallest Ivy. Now, the reason I mention these campus events and traditions is because they're a phenomenal way to boost your application. In fact, it's kind of a red flag if you don't mention them. However, don't write something like, I am excited to go to Dartmouth so I can participate in the Winter Carnival and connect with my peers. Instead, connect one of these events to one of your own passions or extracurriculars. For instance, let's say Drew was a summer camp counselor during his sophomore summer, and there he learned a bunch of silly guitar camp tunes. So in his Why Dartmouth supplement, he could write about how he would play or sing these songs at homecoming bonfire as a way to connect with his new classmates. This would help convey Drew's authenticity as well as how he values community. Two things that Dartmouth genuinely loves. Something else you probably noticed was that all these Dartmouth events were outdoors. Dartmouth, in addition to Cornell, has a reputation for, well, let's just say, being in tune with Mother Nature. It's not at all like Columbia or UPenn or Yale in that respect. So, in your Dartmouth supplements, it might be a good idea to, again, write about a time where you've grown, either intellectually or personally, from one of these outdoors experiences. Another way to hit this environmental note is to connect an academic passion to the outdoors. So for instance, a math major might talk about the golden ratio and how it can be found throughout nature, while a philosophy major might talk about the relationship between the human ego and their physical or natural environment. Last but not least, it's absolutely crucial to talk about how you would contribute to Dartmouth's vibrant community. Again, let's return to Drew and pretend that he was the president of the Environmental Conservation Club at his high school. Instead of just resume dumping and talking about how he planned X number of events and led Y number of kids, Drew should write about the meaningful interactions that he helped foster. Like maybe Drew started a tradition in his club where at the end of each hike, each member who participated would take a leaf that they liked and then paste it into a little memory book. We already know Dartmouth loves and absolutely values its traditions, so it would be amazing for Drew to talk about how he started his own. Finally, let's talk about this peer recommendation. Here's what Dartmouth has to say about it. A peer recommendation is a written statement of support for the applicant's candidacy, completed by anyone the applicant considers a peer. A few examples are a classmate or teammate, brother, sister, or cousin, a coworker, a friend, met at a summer school or summer camp, lab, debate partner, you name it. This is arguably the most unique part of Dartmouth's entire application process. Honestly, I love it so much. Why? Because it gives the admissions officer another chance to see a more real side of you. You may be wondering how you can make sure your peer rec is as awesome as possible. Well, first and foremost, ask your friend to focus on wholesome moments in your guys' relationship. Dartmouth knows you're smart. They know you have a bunch of super duper impressive accolades. The goal with this peer recommendation is to show that you're not just a good person, but a truly kind and compassionate one. Ask them to mention how you encouraged a teammate to try something new, or listened empathetically to a topic you didn't necessarily agree with an open heart or mind. Or maybe about a time where you owned up and apologized after making a mistake. You see, more than other schools, Dartmouth really treasures goodness and humility. Just don't forget to combine that with authenticity, autonomy, and adventure. As long as you hit those 5 notes, I'm sure you guys are gonna do just fine. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.